Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live Preventing Evictions, a Path to Right to Counsel in Harris County. I'm Antonio Zuniga. This is brought to you by Coalition, including Texas Housers, CCPPI, Texas Gulf Coast Area Labor Federation, and the Texas Organizing Project. Did you know that evictions are civil cases between a landlord and their tenant? These cases are held in Justice of the Peace Court, where the judge is elected to serve a 4-year term. In Harris County, we have 16 Justice of the Peace, or JPs, with varying rates of eviction filings. In Harris County, nearly half of the residents are renters, and currently we have the second highest number of eviction filings of any county nationwide. As of December 6th, there have been, 2022, there have been over 140,000 evictions filed in Harris County since the start of the pandemic. Of those, only 1.67% of tenants have some form of legal representation in 2022. With tenant representation, default judgments decreased by almost 75%. Without counsel, approximately 39% of those cases end in default judgment, that is an eviction. With counsel, the number drops sharply to 9%. Harris County started, a little bit of background information, Harris County started the Housing Legal Services Fund program with $1 million investment in August of 2021. And most recently, in September 2022, Harris County allocated $4 million into a fund to be spent over a period of 4 years. Now I'm going to be sharing, in order to keep up to date, if you want to keep up with us, I'm going to be sharing a link in the chat. You can keep up to date with some action events of what we're doing here in the Right to Counsel Coalition, and that'll be in the chat. Today, we're joined by a diverse group of panel members that will share a variety of perspectives about the eviction court proceedings and how tenants' access to legal representation and ultimately the possibility of a right to counsel could impact tenants across the county. On our panel, we have Eric Quatler. He is the managing attorney of the Eviction Right to Counsel unit at Lone Star Legal Aid. Over the course of the pandemic, the Eviction Right to Counsel unit has helped thousands of tenants maintain housing stability, and Eric himself has represented hundreds of families in eviction proceedings in 2022 alone. Before joining Lone Star Legal Aid, Eric led the landlord-tenant team at South Texas College of Law, Houston, where he remains an adjunct clinical professor and was instrumental in forming the Eviction Defense Coalition, an unprecedented collaboration between legal services organizations in Houston to coordinate service throughout the 16 Justice of the Peace courts in Harris County. Also on our panel, we have Rose Sampson, who has been observing and documenting events in eviction court proceedings in the Justice of the Peace courts throughout Harris County since early 2022 with the Housing Eviction Solidarity Network. Also on our panel is Oscar Thomas. He is the Community Housing Justice and Political Organizer at the Texas Organizing Project. As a tenant himself, he fights for and empowers others to make the change they want in their life. He is currently a grad student at the University of Houston. And last but not least, we have Toy Babineau. She is the manager of housing and legal services for the Community Service Department of Harris County. She oversees $6 million in funds supporting the work Harris County is doing with eviction services and legal aid. With nearly 60,000 evictions filed in Harris County in 2022, Mrs. Babineau believes that reducing the number of evictions is vital to the residents we serve. Now I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Julia Orduña. She is the Southwest Texas Regional Director at Texas Housers, focusing on housing affordability, lack of access to safe and dignified housing, and climate change in Houston and surrounding areas.
Thanks, Antonio. I'm really excited about this panel. And thank you for introducing us. So we have a very exciting time for y'all. And I'm going to bring in our panelists to have a wonderful discussion over what's been happening in eviction court, what we're learning about tenants and access to legal assistance. And so I'd like to start off with a question for everybody. So I know there's people from different walks of life here. We've got tenants, we've got Harris County staff, and we've got legal aid. So from your vantage point, what is happening to tenants in eviction court right now? And I'm going to start with you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. So in eviction court right now, we're seeing, as you might imagine from the numbers, unprecedented levels of evictions. And the biggest problem is the playing field level. What we've observed over the last couple of years and really for a long time, especially during the pandemic, is that when we are present as legal counsel on site, the outcomes are far, far better for the tenants that we see. So there's no question in my mind that having lawyers on site is a crucial part of ensuring access to justice.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Eric. Oscar, what do you think about it? What's happening to tenants in eviction court right now? Oscar, you're on mute.
Yes. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Tenants in eviction court are really under the gun because, you know, the unfortunately, as in the criminal justice system, and no different in even in eviction court, that they don't favor defendants in the court. So after the moratorium was lifted on the COVID-19 epidemic, evictions have skyrocketed. So the justice of the peace are more sensitive to the landlords because of the campaign contributions they receive. So, you know, the defendants are really under the gun. So they have, most of them don't have representation. So they are really under assault. And because of gentrification, you know, and this is a big part of it too, that low income families are targeted to be moved out of communities because of the fact of gentrification. You know, they want to raise the rent and they want these families out of there. So the justice of the peace are in cahoots with it. So yeah, they're under assault.
Thanks, Oscar. Rose, as the person that's watching what's happening in court, what do you see happening to tenants in eviction court?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rose Sampson. I have been observing court for a while now. I've noticed that they have a bad habit, lots of bad habits that they can break. But I'm just going to read what I had wrote because that'll be best so I won't miss anything. So over the past years, landlords and owners has cracked down on housing and have went to extreme where they're evicting individuals on housing and running up the prices by adding all these fees, which makes it easier to evict low-income individuals or get them out their home or apartment. Very few courts are waiving the late fees now as we speak. The judges are becoming very open to legal aid being present and us observing.
It's good to hear a couple positives as well. Toy, from your side, what are you seeing? What are you hearing from the county that's happening to tenants?
Absolutely, and good afternoon, and thank you for having me. What I'm seeing is that not every court has access to legal aid services, so some efforts that we've been pushing are being stalled due to access. Our hope is that as we launch additional resources in 2023, that more tenants will have access to services, as well as we have a rent relief program that's kind of working hand in hand with eviction services to address the rent payment issues that yielded the eviction filings.
Yes, and we have heard about rental assistance, and I think it's been very good that it's helped throughout the pandemic previously. But as those that funding is dwindling down, we are asking ourselves, what other protections do tenants have? What other ways do tenants have rights or possibilities to avoid that eviction? So Eric, I want to ask you, I know that Harris County gave a $1 million investment last year towards this Houston Legal Services Fund program. How did that really change the way that legal aids were operating inside the courtroom?
Well, regardless of specific grants, the way what we really need certainly are more lawyers in the courtroom. And as a result, if we can build on what we've done, which has been very successful in many of the courts, we represent, as you said in my perhaps too generous bio, like we've represented hundreds, thousands of tenants with the resources we've had as the Eviction Defense Coalition and the Lone Star Legal Aid, and it's still not enough. We still reject cases. We still can't represent everyone. So there's no question that resources are important, and so are lawyers on the ground.
Yeah, I definitely hear you, Eric. We know that there's just not enough lawyers and not enough funding to be able to make this true right to counsel happen in the vastness of what is Harris County. And do you think that this investment, this $1 million, despite the fact that it was, a start, did that actually help you all navigate a little easier in the courtrooms?
I can't talk too much about specific grant awards, obviously, but like I said, there's no question that additional resources have been crucial to expanding our efforts to provide right to counsel in Harris County.
Yeah. So, Rose, as the person that's watching in the courts, what did you see? How did you see tenants and legal aid navigating the courtroom? We know that they're present because of this investment. What can you tell us about their presence? You're on mute, Rose.
Legal aid does a really good job navigating, but the issue is they like to come in during the court and call these tenants, and it makes it hard for you to observe and hear what's going on. So that kind of complicates things, and I think it would help, if y'all don't mind me sharing, if legal aid would possibly have meetings with these tenants or get their information beforehand, so they won't have to be trying to find the tenants while they're in court trying to hear their name being called, because they risk them hearing themselves being called, and they can automatically default their case if legal aid's loud and they can't hear their name or whatnot.
Well, I want to clarify that we absolutely do that. You can absolutely call Lone Star Legal Aid as a tenant and apply for services. We do that. The problem is that the reason we go out to outreach is because a lot of people don't know that, and we want to make sure that no one falls into the cracks. And that's what's been the real success of the program that we started, because a lot of those people don't know that those services exist. A lot of people don't know anything about evictions when they show up to eviction court, and so our presence there fills a gap through which so many people are falling. But we do, any tenant who needs help with an eviction can contact any of the Eviction Defense Coalition members, including Lone Star Legal Aid, and we will see if you're eligible, if we might be able to provide assistance.
Yeah, and yes, you're right, Eric. Anyone can call, but what Rose has been able to see, and like what we've understood, that this Housing Legal Services Fund is to have lawyers in the courtroom as the last point of touch. And so, yeah, I do think that how do we make this outreach within this program a little more accessible? How do we avoid that a tenant gets all the way to their court hearing without having connection to a legal representative, to the point that it is a last moment advocacy effort to be able to connect with the tenants? And while these resources have been able to put legal aids in various courtrooms, as we heard Rose, they're not always there. So we do see them slipping through the cracks. And this is why we definitely need to start working together and see how this funding would actually promote this, and working more efficiently and equitably for all these folks. Oscar, do you want to share anything about what you've heard as far as like accessing or barriers to legal representation with the tenants you're working with?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest obstacles is outreach of information. You know, what we need to do is not be so reactive. We need to be proactive with as far as representation. You know, we know the targeted communities. We know where there's high evictions at. Why can't we reach out to those communities with information about legal accessibility? Why can't we reach out to those information with forums and say, let's do some tenant rights, know your tenant rights? Why can't we reach out to those people before they reach the eviction court? Because by the time they reach the eviction court, you know, the dockets have already been created. Judges really already know what they're going to do with these people. The decision has already been made. So that's my biggest thing, that I think we need to do a better job of reaching out to these communities with information about legal accessibility before they reach the eviction court level.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear that we can and do those events. If anyone ever wants to have an eviction coalition, defense coalition attorney or paralegal come out and give Know Your Rights presentations, we are more than willing to do that. We have gone into these areas. We did drive-up clinics for the CDC moratorium and rental assistance in high eviction areas. We did them in Alief, in Pasadena, in Kashmir, and all over the city, where, you know, we have a heat map that we made of evictions of the county, overlaid with a bunch of other things. So we know where these evictions are happening, and we are going into those areas. However, you're right that we always need more outreach to actual tenants to make sure they know that they can access those legal services, and that's where community partners come in a lot of the time, who work in those communities, who dedicate their lives to making the lives better for people in that community. You know, we absolutely have had great success partnering with those organizations. But you know, I can tell you that the Right to Counsel program that we put together has been very mathematical. We have drawn up the county and created percentage maps, created heat maps, and deployed attorneys according to eviction numbers. You know, this is not a haphazard effort. This is a very specific, targeted effort that we are excited to build upon.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And kind of thinking about those ins and outs of what's happening with the programs and how to access these services. Toy, I want to turn to you and kind of hear what Harris County has done to stand up this program, what you all think of the program, and how people actually can kind of get through it, or what you all see with this initially.
So once the program is officially launched, our target is January or February of 2023. A link will be available on the Community Services Department website, as well as we're going to issue a press release to our media contacts, share the same information with our stakeholders, partners via meetings, newsletters, et cetera, and really encourage people to disseminate this information to their networks and these communities so that everyone has an opportunity to, you know, apply and be able to get the services that they need. Opportunities such as this podcast aid us in getting the words out to our community residents. So we're very grateful to be here today to speak with you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about like what the county is doing to connect the legal aids with the tenants?
So The program initially got launched through a relationship that we had with Judge Brown, and in late 2020 is when we began working with Precinct 1 to get this program launched out. And we had $1 million to pilot it, and that's how we were able to get it started. Which was able to get the program to start. We are using Treasury ARPA funds for the $4 million going forward. We're in the process of working out those contracts. They're still with purchasing. So we're excited about launching it later on this year. And those vendors that are selected will be reaching out and doing outreach to those communities. They have target areas that have already been identified. They have communities that have a larger number that have been identified. So all of that will go into play when deciding, which neighborhoods to target first, which JP courts to target first when going forward in the eviction process.
Yeah, thank you, Toy. That's really useful for us to understand and to know how you all are tweaking things or how you all are working things so the tenants can access this information. I want to ask Oscar again, thinking about, I know you already talked a little bit about where people are at, how you're seeing these issues. Or do you have an example of maybe something you see as a tenant's biggest need? Where do you see those gaps?
Well, I think and it's in legal representation because though I've witnessed a few tenants that have went to eviction court and have got favorable decisions their way. Overall, I've seen where tenants go into eviction court and the judges don't even want to even recognize that they've even applied for rental assistance. They don't even, the people wants to indicate that I applied for rental assistance and the judge disregards it and gives these people 5 days to move out. We have cases that have been documented of this. So I think, yes, the need is there definitely for legal representation, but I think more so that tenants need to know their rights before they get to the court. They need to know what a landlord can do. They need to know what they can do if they're being subjected to injustice by the landlord. There's rights that tenants have. They need to know how to document their rights. They need to know how to call certain entities, because tenants' rights, for instance, says that if there's a thing that jeopardizes your health, like mold and all of this stuff, that if the landlord does not take care of that issue in 7 days, then the tenant has the right to break their lease. See, and a lot of people don't know this.
Yeah, please don't. So I'm sorry, I have to stop you because that's a popular myth. It's way more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Do not stop paying your rent because the landlord is not.
No, not stop paying your rent. Not stop paying your rent. You have to be up to date on your rent. No, we're not telling nobody to stop paying their rent. No. But I'm just saying they need to know their rights. That's all. They need to know what is in their area that they can do and what the landlord can do. And this is one thing that I think will help people to get on board. But I just want to quickly say this, that on the county level, at Texas Organizing Project, what we do, we organize communities to come together and create power bases. And we believe that once you create power base, you can create political bases. And once you create political bases, you're able to kind of, see people have to get involved in the electoral process because judges are elected. And if a judge is not doing right in your district, then you have an opportunity. Your vote is your voice, and people need to understand that. Also, we helped on the county level get some policies put into place that I think were very significant that will help people in the future, which is a tenant protection policy. So yeah, information is very necessary.
Yeah, I just want to clarify though. Never break your lease without advice from an attorney. or without permission from the landlord in writing. If you have a repair problem, it's true that if you send a letter by certified mail notifying the landlord and you are up to date on your rent, if they do not do it within a reasonable time, which is presumed to be 7 days, but may not be 7 days, it may be different, then you may have the right to break your lease. Always consult a lawyer for legal advice. But I really do agree with most of us, what Oscar was saying. Like, I think you make a really great point. I also want to make it clear that if you lose at JP Court, you have the opportunity to appeal, and legal aid does assist with appeals to county court at law, where the judges are. It's a more formal process. So the world has not ended. If the tenant loses at JP Court, and they should absolutely contact legal aid if they need help appealing, because we do help with that.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, I think those are very interesting viewpoints and things to bring up, and saying, like, yes, the tenants need to understand their rights, but we also need to hold the other folks in court accountable, being the landlord or the justice of the peace, in their behavior and what they're doing, to make sure that they are being unbiased or true to what the facts of the case are, and work within the means of the law. And I think, Oscar, like, yeah, you're saying that people fall behind and it's really hard. In Texas, you can actually be evicted the same month that you fall behind on rent. You have a 3-day notice to vacate that is given by the landlord. And after they give you that notice to vacate, they have 10 days to file that eviction. And so if you miss rent, you could be out that same month. And it's really hard, especially in this situation, this economy that is still bouncing back from the pandemic. Not everyone has been able to find a stable job. And so, yes, these things are so important. I want to kind of gravitate a little bit and look towards the future. We've been talking about a lot about what's happening here in Harris County, in our Justice of the Peace courts, and what we're seeing in the past, in 2020, 2022, and how courts have been running. But thinking about the future, thinking about this new $4 million investment into this legal fund that Harris County has made. Currently, we know that less than 2% of tenants in Harris County have a legal representative with them during an eviction hearing. So this is a question for everybody, and we'll start with Rose. What could you see happening if their legal representatives were more accessible for tenants? How do you see outcomes changing in the courtroom? Rose, what do you think? You're on mute. Rose, you're on mute.
I believe that it'll change greatly because less people get evicted and put on the streets. And we also should try to come together and actually communicate with each other. Legal aid and Texas housers, one day we should communicate together and come up with solutions together so it won't be all on one organization. Because if you think about it, we all have the same purpose. We're trying to help the same people make it. So we should try our best to come together as a team and work together.
Thanks, Rose.
And it'll do great. If we do that, everything will be great.
Yeah. Oscar, what do you think will change if we have better access to legal representation? How can you see that change happening?
Well, I think when people are not under a lot of stress, as far as this affects people's mental stability. The children are affected, the community are affected. Even the landlords are affected. So I think it would not only help the families, to not have a peace of mind, but it also helped the community to prosper, because where there's stable housing, where there's safe and stable housing, the community can coalesce around growing. and concentrate on those things that improve communities, economic empowerment, getting involved in social networking programs. And yeah, it starts with legal representation, that legal representation connect with organizations like us where we organize and we can bring these people into a space where the legal representation, like Rose was saying, we all collaborate on one agenda, and that's to have these communities to be, just people moving in and out, that's an unstable community. So yeah, I think it was stabilized community, less known the family.
Yeah, thank you for that perspective. And I do agree with you, Oscar, that putting this investment into keeping people housed actually helps helps with other investments. And like you're saying, we don't have to invest in other social welfare issues, thinking about houselessness, thinking about children moving schools because of this instability, thinking about health outcomes. All of those things could be averted if a family has stable housing. So I thank you for that perspective. Eric, how do you see things changing for your work if more tenants had access to legal representation?
I mean, we know from other jurisdictions that bodies on the ground is what reduces, in the short term, reduces eviction judgments. In the long term, long term, reduces eviction filings as well. In Dallas, they just had a study that showed a massive drop in eviction judgments when an attorney was present. I'm talking about like an 80% to 90% drop in eviction judgments when an attorney is present. So, we're always going to say, based on our observations here in Harris County and based on our observations in places like Baltimore, New York, that have eviction right to counsel, we definitely believe in the value of attorney representation in court.
Yeah, and hopefully this brings a lot more work your way, but I do hope that you still get to rest. That means that there's more need for lawyers. There's always more need. So if you're a lawyer out there, we're looking at you. Toy, what do you think this is going to change for tenants and for Harris County?
I think accessibility to legal representation for tenants facing eviction not only is a highly effective way of keeping renters in their homes, but it's also beneficial to the entire community. It prevents homelessness and it preserves affordable housing. So it's a win-win for the county as well as the tenants.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what Oscar was saying. So I think we've all, even though we all have different vantage points within this realm of evictions and what is this access to justice, I think we're all kind of saying the same things and seeing the same things. Yeah, so Toy, I want to stay on you, and I know you talked a little bit about it already, but once this new investment kind of pops in, how do you see these tenants accessing right to counsel? Is it mostly through courtrooms when they come to court, or do you see other opportunities for them to really connect with legal representatives?
Yes, our focus is definitely outreach this time around, just making it more accessible to everyone. So definitely wanting to connect them with attorneys beforehand so that they can talk their cases through and then, kind of be walked through the process at court. So that is my hope, that we just really focus on outreach and that we have a plan. We have a communities identified. We have JP courts that we've identified. So, the plan is there. We just need to execute it once we launch.
Oh, good. Yes. And do you think there's going to be an opportunity for the public to help develop any of this plan, or is this mostly happening in-house and we hope to see the fruits of y'all's labor?
Oh, no, absolutely. We're always open to, suggestions. We're a county entity, so we're serving the residents of Harris County, and their input is a great deal of what we take into that. So absolutely. I think as we wrap up this program year, we're kind of doing surveys and kind of looking at, what can be done better. And then we'll definitely take all that into account as we formulate these new contracts and go into our new year.
Wonderful. So thinking about this money, this investment, and this new program, and we're hoping that it's really going to kickstart having more access to legal representatives. I want to ask this to Rose. You sitting and watching court as an observer, we tend to walk in with a very neutral idea of what's happening, trying to understand and listen to what the tenant says, listen to what the landlord says, what the lawyers say, and then listen to how the justice of the peace is responding and reacting. All of those players, I think, are very integral in the way that this program and this process actually helps and actually plays out efficiently. So, Rose, how do you envision the courts and legal aids working together to provide a right to counsel? How do you see that happening? And you're on mute.
Take time, just time, effort, and just remember your why. Like, why are you doing it? That's it. And we can do it. We gotta have more community meetings. Sometimes we gotta meet up and just talk about it. You know, we may be working for different organizations, but we still got the same why.
Yeah, so bringing all the players to the table and having collective conversations and finding our North Star would really help us. Eric, within your work, how do you see all the players coming to the table?
Well, I can tell you that our work in the Keep Harris Housed Coalition with Housers and Gulf Coast Area Labor Federation and so many other organizations was really an incredible feat. And we did so much together by cooperating. And I think that is going to be a key going forward, that we stand at the ready to continue trying to make partnerships like that work. But, you know, obviously, ultimately, the form it takes is going to come down to the county. But I feel like we have a lot to build on. So, and I'm really excited about that.
One step at a time. Oscar, I mean, hearing from what you heard from Rose and from Eric, do you have any specific suggestions on how the court, how the lawyers and Harris County can work together to do better for tenants and bring this access to justice towards a true right to counsel?
You know, as someone that strives, you know, and I believe in the social work realm, that it's true that, you know, when it says we the people, for the people, and by the people, that people can take part in their own lives, you know, that they can partner with the legal representation, they can partner with the county, you know, the people need to get involved. And that's what we do, is organize, and we bring all entities together, you know, because, you know, I don't know how to best address your situation unless you tell me what's going on, you know. So we need people to come out and speak about what's happening in their life. To if the legal representation isn't coming to you, let's go to them, you know. And this is what we need to do. So I think the collaboration on all levels, it has to work with the people, because it's the people create the government. So the government shouldn't have to operate isolated, because it's about the people. So people need to understand. And that's where the outreach comes in again, that also we want to let people know that, okay, we're here for you, but we need to hear from you. And so, yeah, I think that once we connect each other with all entities, I think we can do this. We can do this. We can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yes, we can. And I agree with you. We definitely can do this. I think Harris County, City of Houston, we've come a long way from 2020, and there's still so much more work to do. So I have one more question for everybody. And I just want to go around the table again. So Toy, one wish for the future of eviction court and right to counsel. What can you share with us?
My wish is more uniformity across the dockets on how eviction matters are addressed, so that basically if I go into JP Court 2-1 or if I go into 5-1, the process is basically the same.
Thanks. Eric, what do you think? One wish for eviction court and right to counsel.
That we build on what we've already built. That we continue our legacy of analytical-based approach to tenant representation.
Awesome. Ms. Rose, one wish. What would you like to see in eviction court? You're on mute. Rose, you're on mute. Ms. Rose, I can't hear you. You're muted.
I just want less people to get evicted. Just less people to get evicted. I want us to find a way to make this work so they can actually have a home. So they won't be struggling trying to get to a home, find a place to stay.
Yes, we need evictions to be fair and rare, right?
Yes.
I like that.
Oscar, last word. What's your one wish for eviction court in the future for right to counsel in Harris County?
Well, as far as the right to counsel, I think the county is on the right level. I think there just needs to be more funding and more emphasis on enlarging the individuals that are there to represent these clients, because it's a vast number that's facing evictions. As far as the JP courts are concerned, I'm encouraged when I see individuals like the recently elected Dolores Lozano and Judge Steve Dubel go into that JP court system, because they're going in with the right intentions. I just hope they follow through, because these are good people. And so what we need is more individuals like that on the bench. And the people, I'll say this quickly, that the people have to understand is you have a choice in that. You have a choice in who can be the justice of the peace judge in your district. You have a choice in that. And I want them to understand that and get involved.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely have a choice. And you also have a choice to be this person if you'd like.
Yes.
Talk to Bob. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for your questions or for your insight, for your answers, and for the work that you're doing. Like I said at the beginning, we are all coming from different perspectives and different angles of this beast that is eviction court and this pandemic issues that we've been seeing just get worse throughout the time that this instability has happened. And while we want to keep everyone housed, we want to find the best option for them. And sometimes that means leaving the house, but it is a positive outcome. So how can we find these positive outcomes? And we've heard a lot of opportunities today from our panelists. So thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday and week. And I'm sure we'll be talking more soon.
Lily, there's a question, apparently.
Oh, there is a Gus. Are you talking about
Jordan posted in the private chat.
Oh. So this question is from Carmen. She says, I was in court and I see how much people was waiting to be called. Was like 300 people, only one judge. And he was like a teacher just passing lists and giving the eviction orders. He doesn't let anybody of the people there ask questions in the 4 hours. Do you think that's right to have one judge attend with more than 300 people? And I think this is what sounds like is these are dockets that are just high case counts. We have seen dockets that sometimes have 100 cases, and we see landlords and tenants coming from cases. Does anyone want to answer that question or speak to that question?
I'll respond to it if it's okay, quickly.
Sure.
And this is unfortunately how the Justice of the Peace Court operates. That there's no rules to the game; they're not held accountable, and this is why it is so imperative that people get involved in the electoral process, because the laws have to be created to rein in not only landlords but judges. All that is through legislation, and you have to get people to understand that legislation has to happen. So we got to get people elected that's going to favor our situation, and that's the only way that's going to happen. That's the only way that's going to change.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to like what you're saying, those practices and like Toy was speaking to, having that uniformity, not having these 100, 200 case dockets.
Yeah, and I'm not going to speak to the fairness of the JP system, but just a reminder: if you get an unsatisfactory outcome at the JP, you do have the opportunity to appeal. You have 5 business days to appeal, and if you do, you go up to county court of law, which is a very different experience. We handle those cases a lot, and we're happy to take a look if you have an appeal. But it is a very different experience in the court, and the county courts of law will certainly hear you out. And when you appeal, the judgment from the lower court is vacated, so you get a whole new shot at the apple.
Yeah, and we do know that JP courts are not a court of record, but once you appeal, there is a little more accountability, if maybe we can say. Eric, this question may be particularly for you. It says, can a landlord evict you after they newly acquire a property if you pay rent regularly, but they object to your background if you have a criminal record?
I would say that if you have a specific legal problem, you should call Lone Star. It's kind of difficult for me to answer questions like that in a setting like this. But by all means, if you do have a problem like that, we want to hear more information about it. I can't give you an answer just from that because landlord-tenant questions are complicated. But we do have lawyers who are happy to see if we can answer them.
Yeah. And I'm not a lawyer, but I feel like I've heard in other states, a landlord can't evict you if you're a residing tenant, but I don't think that's the case in Texas, unfortunately. So yes, please connect with Lone Star or another legal representative to answer your question. All right. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate you all the time and the work you all have been putting into this. And I'm sure we'll be talking more and seeing more of each other as the new year rolls around. Thank you all. Oh, what a wonderful panel. Antonio, what did you think?
I thought it was great. It was great. It was very informative. And we got to answer lots of questions. The people's questions.
Yeah, and so I'm going to bring on your other partner, another partner of ours, Jordan, just to talk a little bit about what you all think about that. How'd you all feel about the answers that we got from our panelists?
Yeah, learned a lot. It was great. I think that we had such a diverse voices in the room made it a lot more interesting, and just hearing from so many different people's perspective. And also, thank you, audience. I've been typing to you all. Thank you for participating and asking great questions. I've also been posting the Google form. If you are a tenant, if you are a concerned community member, if you are a community organizer or part of another organization, we would love for you to join our coalition working towards a right to counsel in Harris County. It's just name, email, really quick form. So fill that out and we'll be in touch.
Yes, and I would like to let you all know that I know a big topic of concern today was knowing your rights and tenants understanding their rights. So there is a link coming in the chat. It's the Texas Tenant Advisor. If you have any questions that you'd like to do a little research yourself, that is definitely a place to go. Look at the information, find out what you can do, and definitely if you can't find the information there about your rights, what a landlord can and can't do, connect with a legal aid representative. I know I saw Lone Star's information in there. There are other folks in Harris County that are also providing legal assistance. So you can get connected with other organizations if Lone Star Legal Aid for any reason just can't serve you. But that is definitely an option to be able to learn about your own rights on your own, in your own pace.
Thank you, Donna. Just put the phone number as well. So check out their website, or also give them a call, and also pass that on to anyone you think might need it. I think, everybody touched on so many different elements of this complicated issue, but if you're interested in joining us at this point, we're really advocating, as Julia mentioned, and a few of our panelists, like Oscar, was talking, the county has taken such great steps forward, and we are just working towards further funding to be able to reach more people, so less people are evicted. As Rose said, I loved her answer. It's just like, we need less evictions, and we really need less evictions in Harris County.
So yes, we do have an upcoming action. What Jordan said. We'd like to invite everybody to join us next week. We do have a press conference at Commissioner's Court Tuesday, December 13th at 9 a.m. Like Oscar had mentioned previously, one of his wishes is more funding. Ask and you shall receive. That is what we are asking for, an increase of initial funding from the $4 million to $20 million over the 3 years to help people and provide basic adequate representation for tenants in our eviction courts. So we want to invite everybody out next Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you so much, Antonio, and I will let you close this out.
Me? Okay, thank you everybody for being here. We are making this a series, so we will be back. Make sure to follow us on all of our socials. We'll be back. We'll see you next week, Tuesday, and we'll see you back on live early in January 2023. Thank you. Have a good day until lunch. See you later.